Hello, record nerds of the internet and vinyl community content creators. People are asking questions. I'm going to ask some questions, and I demand that you answer me. I've got 10 questions. Answer them.
Six in the morning.
So, last time I answered questions, I showed you random garbage. This time, since I'm the one asking questions, and I will also answer my own questions, I will show you random records because, this is supposed to be vinyl related. Question 1. How did you come up with the name of your channel? So some of you will have channel names that are like your name or pretty self-explanatory, but some of you have really interesting names, and I would love to know where you got that name from. My name has a long sort of history, but mostly it goes back to a name that I used to use on something called the Harmony Central Amp Forum a long, long time ago. We're talking 25 years ago, 20 years ago, I don't know, a long time ago. So there's that. What do you film your videos on? Yeah, I'm always curious. Sometimes people have real low-res looking videos. And I'm like, what are you filming that on? And then sometimes people have really high-res looking videos. And I'm like, wow, what are you filming that on? I'm using a, what is this called? It's a Nikon D7200 DSLR camera with, I don't know. I can't read it. I don't have my glasses on. I don't know what the lens I'm using is. Do you edit your videos or just post the whole thing? I used to just post the whole thing, and then, as we'll get to later, I stopped doing that. I started editing the crap out of my videos, and it takes forever to edit them, and it's probably the worst part of doing this. When did you start collecting records and why? The first record I ever collected, or when I found records to be collectible, was the Henry Rollins Sub Pop Singles of the Month Club 7-inch. I was getting mail updates back in the day, back in like 91 or something, from Henry Rollins. And he had available to the people, I don't know, fan club, I don't know, that doesn't seem right, but we're going to call it fan club, that record available to some of his fan club. And I bought that, and it was on like this cool pink vinyl, and Sub Pop had the Singles of the Month Club back then. I don't remember which number that was, like 1 or 2. Anyway, so it had never occurred to me that records were collectible until then. And then, so the thing that got me collecting records, particularly like punk and hardcore records, is that if you wanted to hear a record back in the 80s and 90s, you actually had to do one of two things. You had to own it, or you had to find someone who had like a 10th generation cassette copy of it, which obviously sounded horrible. So I decided I would have to start collecting records just to hear the records I wanted to hear. Do you consider yourself an audiophile? I think that's a fraught term. I understand why people hate it. I do think it's a description that is apt. I have a whole theory on audiophiles, and basically I think that most audiophiles are on the spectrum of autism, and I think that I'm probably on that spectrum. And so I would probably say yes, but I don't love the term. What is your current vinyl setup? Well, as I've gone through 100,000 times, I will go through it here too, since you may have not watched those videos. My turntable is a VPI Scout that has a Audio-Technica AT33SA cartridge on it, and that goes into a Rogue Stealth preamp that I've modified, and then that goes into one of 3 preamps. Lately it has been a Quicksilver tube preamp, but I also have an Audio Research SP14 tube preamp, and I also have a shit Freya non-plus version that I will use occasionally as well. I'm going to eventually sell 2 of those, but I haven't decided which 2 I'm going to sell. And then that goes into a Rotel. Jeez, this part's hard because I don't remember this ever. A Rotel 1552 MK2 power amp, I believe. I will put it here if I'm wrong or right. Into KEF R300 speakers. I also have a Rel something subwoofer that is connected, but I almost never ever use. Which I should probably sell that too. What does your family think of your channel? I think my kids think it's cringe, and I think my wife doesn't care about it at all, remotely, even a little bit. What is one record you sold you wish you hadn't? I don't know. Some people seem like they have like records and they never sell them. I have a philosophy of once a record is worth more than I'm willing to pay for it, like if this Leatherface record was worth $100, I would sell it. Because as much as I like Leatherface and I want to own this, I would not pay $100 for this. So if someone's willing to give me $100, that is me logically paying $100 for it. I don't know what this is worth. It might be worth $100. I haven't looked. It's probably like 20 bucks. So I've sold lots and lots of punk and hardcore grails over the years. Like I owned all of the X-Claim releases except for the DYS record because that one sucks. I owned, well, I don't know, so many records. All like pretty much all of the early Discord records, lots of really rare Poison Idea records, lots and lots and lots of rare records. And I've sold them because at one point they're worth more than I'm willing to pay for them. So if I'm going to regret selling a record, it's probably like, hey, I wish I would have sold my Minor Threat 7-inch for $2,000 or $1,000 or whatever it goes for now, rather than the $60 I sold it for 25 years ago. But you can only sell it once, people, so.
2,000 years later.
You know what? Actually, I think I know the record. I think I know the record. There's a band called Chain of Strength. Their second 7-inch, there's a couple of different versions of it. One of it had a sleeve that said like Confusion on it. And I owned that. I bought it relatively inexpensively, like $20 back in the 90s. At the time, no one really knew what it was. And it turns out, I believe it was a different mix. I think it's called the Chain Crew mix of that record. And I traded that for that with a whole bunch of other hardcore records, for a really crappy guitar amp that I wouldn't even own if you gave it to me. That is my biggest regret. I don't know. I think that record's worth hundreds of dollars. I probably would have sold it by now, but it would still be cool to have that. Speaking of Chain of Strength. Has anyone ever recognized you in the real world? Part of the reason why I don't show my face is because I don't want to be recognized in the real world. I am weird around people. I have social issues. I don't like talking to people because I don't know how to be normal. In fact, I was on a reality show many years ago, and people would sometimes recognize me from that, and that was awkward, and I hated that. So I just want to minimize any chance of someone trying to have an awkward conversation with me because it makes me feel really weird inside, and I don't like it. But I'd love to know if people have actually been like, oh my gosh, I watch your YouTube channel. That's interesting to me. It's funny if it happens to you, but it's horrifying if it happens to me. What is the worst comment you've ever received? Man, because people can leave some doozies, some real soul-crushing goddamn comments that just like, wow, that one. I actually was compiling all the mean comments for a while, and I was going to do a video on that. Maybe I'll still do that. If you think I should do that, put something down there. But here we go. I will tell you the one that really just, knocked me back. This is from someone named Ann Hansen. So I presume it's a woman. And this was on the iFi Zen phono preamp review, which then makes you think it's not a woman because women have better things to do than watch videos on YouTube about phonopramps. But maybe, I don't know. And so here's her comment. Trip over words, question mark. You're borderline inarticulate. You may have valid viewpoints, but the agony of watching you try to express it made me stop the clip and write this. Holy S, people. The worst part about it is she's not wrong. I am borderline inarticulate. I would actually say I'm full-on inarticulate. My brain doesn't work right. Like, my brain goes way faster than my mouth, and my mouth cannot keep up. So I'm often stumbling over my words, and I'm often changing my thought in mid-sentence, and so I will stumble over my words. And so she's right. That's the worst part, that he or she or they or whatever, Ann Hansen, is right. She's not wrong. She's probably most wrong about my viewpoints being valid, because that's probably wrong. My viewpoints are probably not valid. But man, that was a rough one. I don't remember what my response was. It was probably something like, you're right, I am inarticulate, and you're wrong. I don't have valid viewpoints. My brain probably went to the same place and was like, yeah, no, you're right and you're wrong at the same time. But you're right about the bad thing and you're wrong about the good thing. Well, that's it. I will tag some people who I'd love to have their answers to, because, you know, I can ask questions too. And I feel like my questions are good. Like, these are questions I want to know the answers to. Give me your answers.